After a rather wet and miserable summer, we have arrived at autumn. Our crops need to be gathered in, our produce needs to be preserved, and our beehives need to be made ready for winter. Our plans to become self-sufficient have taken a bit of a hammering from the weather this year, but at least our hens and our ducks are doing well. So welcome to Self-Sufficient in Suburbia for autumn. We've had the ducks for about a month now, and I'm in the duck run here that we built for them. It's part of the allotment which gets very muddy whenever it rains, and let's face it, we've had an awful lot of rain recently. Now, they've adapted well to the allotment. They've taken over the pond, in fact made a bit of a mess of it. We expected that to happen, so we're going to have to clean that up, but we're also going to extend the pond as well, and we're going to put them in a bathtub as well, which will be very easy for us to clean out. And they've, as I say, they've all adapted very well. They've started laying as well. We've had half a dozen duck eggs, but around me is the fencing for the duck run, and we're going to take that away today and allow them to become free range so that they can wander across the whole of the allotment. We haven't had a honey crop this year. The weather has just been awful, but we need to get the hives ready for winter, and now at the start of autumn we're going to check them, feed them, but also check to see if there's any honey in the supers. That's the box on the top, and if there's any honey in that, we're going to take it off and take it back to the house. This one is quite a weight, capped on that side and capped on the other, so good heavy frame of honey. We have a honey crop at last. Right, so we'll take the whole of this super off and we're going to replace it with a new one without any frames in, but we'll put some feed in for them. Last month we bought another 9 hens, so the egg supply we've got at the moment is quite good. But the new hens tend to start off laying small eggs. Now there's a couple that they've laid recently, and just as a comparison, that is one of the standard eggs that the hens will lay, and that's obviously one of the new ones. And this is a large egg that one of our hens lays. She's a really good layer, so lays often and lays big, so she must have felt it when she laid that one. And just as an illustration of what hens can produce, we bought 4 columbines last month, and they lay these eggs, lovely green eggs. A bit small at the moment, but they will get bigger. Now these small eggs aren't really much use for doing for recipes that require an egg. because they're just not big enough. So what we're going to do is make them into this. These are pickled eggs that I made a few weeks ago, and they're in a spiced vinegar with mustard seeds and so on in as well. So we're going to have a go right now at making some more pickled eggs. Start by making the pickling vinegar. You need to put half a litre of white vinegar into a pan and add into it a tablespoonful of coriander seeds, a tablespoonful of mustard seeds, 1 teaspoonful of ground cinnamon and a small number of cloves. When the vinegars come up to the boil, leave it to simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. Whilst we're waiting for the vinegar to finish boiling, you can get the contents of the pickling jar ready. So hard-boiled eggs, layer on the bottom, and then a layer of thinly sliced onions, then again eggs and onions until the jar is full. Once the vinegar has finished simmering, take it off the heat and let it cool down. Well, once the vinegar has cooled down, you can then pour it into the pickling jar. Now you can, if you wish, strain off the seeds, but I think they look rather nice in the jar, so I'm going to leave them in. That's the jar now sealed. The brownish colour comes from the cinnamon powder that we put in. Now this is one of the ones that I made a couple of weeks ago. As you can see, it's got a slightly yellowish skin to it, but we're now going to try it out. Oh, that's pretty good, that. So there we go, that's the inside. So there we go, that's how to make pickled eggs. In any normal year, I'd expect to be harvesting my tomatoes from around about mid-July onwards. Well, this hasn't been a normal year in terms of the weather. It's rained and it's been cold and pretty miserable. So the tomato crop, what we have of a crop, is rather late this year. We're now into early October, so into the autumn, and most of my tomatoes are like this. Now, they should have ripened weeks ago and should have been harvested weeks ago. And actually I've got a greenhouse full of green tomatoes at the moment. Now, these don't need to be wasted. These can go back to the kitchen, and what we're going to do back there is use them to make a green tomato chutney. Tomatoes will come in all sorts of sizes. You've got big like that, medium like that one, or smallish like that. Now what you need to do is chop them so that they're all the chunks are around about the same size. That one I'm going to halve, that one into quarters, that one into eighths. Once they're all chopped, get them into the preserving pan. In the jam pan we have 2 kilos of chopped green onions, and we're going to add in 900 grams of chopped apples, and then we're going to follow this with the same weight in chopped onions, and then 100 grams of raisins, 450 grams of soft brown sugar, 4 large cloves of garlic crushed, and then for the spices we're going to add in a teaspoonful of turmeric, a teaspoonful of ground cloves, and 2 teaspoonfuls of ground pepper. And finally we are going to add in 600 millilitres of white wine vinegar. Then, as you can see, this is now boiling, So what we're going to do is turn down the heat and let it simmer for about an hour and a half. And basically we're going to aim for the liquid to thicken up and all this to reduce down a little bit. Well, it's now been simmering for about an hour and a half, and as you can see it's thickening up quite a bit, but there's still a reasonable amount of liquid on there, so I want that to be thicker before we take it off the heat. So we're going to leave it on for a bit longer to try and drive off a bit more of that liquid, but otherwise it's reduced down quite a reasonable amount. And finally, as you can see, this is now a nice thick consistency, so this is now ready. Well, that's one of the 9.5 jars of green tomato chutney that we made from the 2 kilos of green tomatoes. Our problem is that we've still got lots of green tomatoes to get through, so we'll be looking at other recipes to try in the near future and get those green tomatoes used up. These are some of the leeks that we've picked on the allotment recently. Now, in Britain, one of the classic soups is leek and potato, and that's what we're going to have a go at making now. Well, the first job to do is to put a bit of oil in a pan and heat it up, and then add in 1 chopped onion, followed by your potatoes chopped, about 4 potatoes, and 4 or 5 medium-sized leeks. Get that into the pan and then just let that cook away lightly for about 10 minutes. This is the vegetable stock that we're going to add. It's homemade. It's made from tops of leeks, some broad bean pods, a bit of liquid that we drained off from some cucumbers that we'd salted ready for pickling, and also some liquid that we'd boiled up some runner beans in. A bit of garlic and a bit of dried herbs added to it as well. So basically the stock is made from stuff that would, most of which would have just been thrown out, so we got a second use of it. And after the pan's been boiling, been heating for about 10 minutes, we just need to add the stock to it. With the stock added, we're also going to add in a bit of garlic, about 2 or 3 reasonable sized cloves, just to go in. And then this is going to be left to come up to the boil and then simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. Well, this has now been simmering for about 12 to 13 minutes, and what we're going to do is just add in a little bit of seasoning, a bit of salt, because in my opinion that wasn't quite enough in the stock that we added. And then we're going to add in half a litre of milk. Give that a stir and then let that simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. Well, as you can see, this is now done, and you can, if you want, blend it at this point, but I think it actually looks quite nice as it is, so we're going to have it unblended. Oh, excellent. Oh yay, definitely. Excellent. Well, we always know that autumn is arriving when the leeks are ready, so this is a great recipe to use up all those leeks on. Now, most of what went into this we produced ourselves, except the milk, and hopefully at some point soon we'll have our own goats to be able to produce our own milk, and we'll be one step closer to self-sufficiency. This is the last of my rhubarb crop for this year. This is the bucket of blackberries that I picked yesterday. What we're going to do is make a jam that I've never made before, which is rhubarb and blackberry jam. However, the principles of jam making are the same everywhere. You need acid, which comes from the fruit and from the rhubarb. You need pectin, and in this instance we're going to get that from the lemon juice that we're going to add. You need heat and you need sugar, and combine that together and you should get the jam that you want to make. So if you want to make rhubarb and blackberry jam, this is what you need to do. Chop the rhubarb and put it in the jam pan, and then add roughly equal quantity of blackberries and then freshly squeezed lemon juice. You'll need about one large lemon, the juice from one large lemon for each kilo of ingredients. In this pan I've boiled the skins of the lemons that we squeezed into the pan. It's really to just give us an extra bit of water to stop the fruit from catching on at the bottom of the pan whilst it's boiling, but also to extract a little bit more pectin from the lemon. The contents are now up to boiling point. You can just hear it boiling away there. So what we're going to do is turn down the heat and let this simmer. And well, once it's become a nice pulp like that, what you need to do is add in a kilo of sugar for every kilo of ingredients that you had. And then when you've added all the sugar in, you then need to bring it back up to the boil. Well, as you can see, it's boiling away quite merrily, so what I'm going to do is just take a spoonful, put it on a saucer and check that it's reached its setting point. Well, this has been on the saucer for a couple of minutes to cool down, and it is forming a skin, so that is now ready to go into hot sterilised jars. But since this is the first time I've made this jam, this is the moment of truth time. Hey, that is not bad. So, might as well finish it off now that I've started. Yum, 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 yum. Right, now to get it all into jars. That is one of the 15 jars of blackberry and rhubarb jam that we've made. Now, as I said, never made it before, but the underlying principles of jam making are all the same. You need your fruit to have acid in it, you need pectin. If your fruit that you're adding into your jam or your rhubarb doesn't have pectin in, or insufficient pectin, then add in some pectin, or add in fruit that contains pectin. In this case we added in lemon juice. And then you need heat and you need sugar, and that combination together will ensure that the jam sets. So I'm off now to enjoy my new jam. With so many eggs from our hens at the minute, we need to be imaginative with the way we use the eggs up. So back in the kitchen, I'm going to show you how to use lots of eggs in a recipe to make a bacon and leek flan. First job to do is to chop the leeks, and then put a pan on a gentle heat with a little bit of oil in the bottom, and then add your chopped leeks to the pan. Now you just want these to sweat. You don't need to fry them, you don't need to roast them or incinerate them, just gently sweat them in a gentle heat for about 15 to 20 minutes. get your flan cases ready. That's short crust pastry that's gone into that. Chop your bacon and then get your eggs beaten. Now I haven't beaten these at the moment, but I've left them left the yolks as they are for the moment because I just wanted to show you the beautiful golden colour of the yolks that are from the eggs that our hens are laying at the moment. Now the bacon doesn't need to be fried in oil or fat. We're just going to add the bacon directly to the pan on a low heat. That's probably a little bit too high, so I'm going to turn that down a bit. On a low heat and just let it simmer gently for about 10 minutes in its own fat. The leek and bacon are now ready to go into the flan cases. And once they're in, sufficient in, we'll add the egg as well. Now on a flan dish of that size, I found that 6 eggs is just about sufficient. Thankfully, our hens at the moment are producing a reasonable quantity of eggs. It then needs to go into a preheated oven at 180 degrees centigrade. Very careful. There it goes. It's had 20 minutes now in the oven, so we're just going to give it a quick check to see how it's doing. And I believe that that is now ready. Well, it looks good. The question is, does it taste good? Oh yeah, lovely. Beautiful golden colour to it as well. So not only does it look good, it does taste good as well. Now the eggs in here we produced from our own hens. The leeks we grew ourselves. The bacon we had to buy. But next on our list of things to do is to buy a pig. So hopefully soon we'll have our own bacon as well. Definitely good. Well, we're here at Bill Quay Community Farm in Gateshead. Now this is where we do our volunteer beekeeping, but we're not here today to look at bees. We're here to look at pigs. Now the plan is, at some point in the future, when we've got sufficient land, we will get our own pigs. But we're going to buy one of the pigs here. It's a Tamworth boar. It's going to slaughter within about a week, and we'll take that. We'll have that butchered, and it will come back to our house. And we've already agreed with other people we know who are into self-sufficiency who keep sheep that we'll be trading some of the pork for lamb. But generally, what we're aiming to do within the next few months is to learn how to cope with all that meat, but at some point in the future, once we've got a bit of land, we'll be looking at keeping our own pigs. Well, I'm pleased to say he doesn't have a name, which makes slaughtering and eating easier, but he's about 5 to 6 months old, and in a week's time he'll be off to slaughter, and the slaughterhouse and the butcher will turn him into joints, fully butcher him, and cure some of the meat as well. Well, the Tamworth pigs raised here on Bill Quay Community Farm are ethically raised and ethically slaughtered. So that was one of the reasons why we were interested in buying the pig here. That's it for this edition of Self-Sufficient in Suburbia. Join us in the next edition when we'll be taking delivery of our pig. So hopefully we'll see you then.